I see that. So I'd like to take the opportunity to welcome everyone to the our Middlesex County Library Board meeting and for Tuesday, November 23rd. And I'm going to, it's a pleasure to see everybody here, and someday in the near future, we might be able to meet in person, but we'll move through this the way we have it. And I'm going to ask for any provisions of disclosure of pecuniary interest. Seeing none, we'll move to the minutes of September 28th, 2021. If there's any questions or comments, if not, I look for a motion that the minutes of the September 28th, 2021 meeting, the library board be approved as presented. Was that a question, Warden? Oh, just moved by Kathy Burkhardt Jessup, seconded by Brad Richards. All in favor? That's carried. Chris, a question. How can I, oh, maybe I'll just see if I can do it here. Move everybody to a full screen and get everybody in. No?
Are you on your laptop, Jim?
Yes.
In the top corner, if you move your mouse, there should be a view button and it's got a little grid beside it. If you switch that to gallery, that'll show everybody.
Got it. Okay.
Perfect.
Geez, live and learn even at my age. Thank you very much. Next, we'll move on to our visioning topic, and Lindsay's going to walk us through this, our budget session. And when we get near the end of it, we're going to go in camera because we're going to talk about some personnel matters. So if you're ready, Lindsay, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just going to find my presentation here and share it. I have too many things open, I think. Okay. There we go. Can everyone see that now?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. So walking through, and I didn't change this to 2022. I'm forgetting what year it is already, so I'll go back and make that change. But so for this preliminary budget discussion, so typically in this November meeting, we go through a draft budget, and then we'll come back in December, just in 2 weeks, having incorporated any changes or recommendations or any changes that might come from the other departments that provide us with the numbers, come back and approve the final budget at that point. So today, I'm just going to walk you through a little bit of a strategic plan update. So showing what we accomplished with the 2021 budget and what we're working on and moving towards in 2022. Then we'll go through the 2022 budget in more detail. We'll talk about a few sort of ongoing projects and opportunities that will happen in 2022, some considerations. And then, as Mr. Chair pointed out, we will circle back to the staffing budget and have a discussion in closed session, as it does refer to specific positions and staff members. So to get started, we look back at just a refresher for us all, what our strategic plan looks like. So our first objective is to reimagine what the library has to offer. So through that, we will explore new approaches to service delivery and further develop the community hub strategy. We will leverage staff skills and experience to expand what the library has to offer. We will increase awareness of the library as a dynamic community destination, and we will continue to explore and advance leading edge practices, ideas, and approaches. And so I've listed a few of the projects and initiatives that correlate with this strategic direction and the objectives. So first, our Strathroy Early On Child and Family Center. So that construction project wrapped up end of summer, beginning of fall. We had the official open house just a few weeks ago. And so that has really developed that space into, a really full service community hub, expanded what we can do for the community, and really, we're limited in terms of capacity right now because of COVID restrictions, but we know that when we're back up to operating at a normal level, it really does increase the profile of the Strathroy Library, similarly the Ilderson Library, where our other Early On Child and Family Center is located, and just create the library, the Strathroy Library, as even more of a community destination for residents. So as well, we launched our Thorndale outdoor play space. So we'll think back to our last meeting before the summer when this project was proposed, and so this was a joint project between early on, but also using some bequest funds for the Thorndale Library. The work was done over the summer, and early on, and library staff made great use of the space end of summer and into fall, being able to offer programming outside. It was really ideal because the capacity for those programs could be larger as they were outside. It's a beautiful space. I know I showed you photos, I think at our last meeting, but hopefully in the spring, summer, we can get out there in person and you can see how that space has developed. You were able to take a look at the Ilderton outdoor space. So a lot of the similar elements are in the Thorndale outdoor play space. So that was a really exciting project to accomplish in 2021. And then finally, another example of a strategic initiative that we accomplished in 2021 was the Adelaide Metcalfe Novel Branch Library Kiosk. So this really was a new approach to service delivery in a municipality where a library facility did not exist. Now we have that service point at the municipal office. And so, we're looking ahead, obviously, to 2022 to enhance that service and continue to adapt it to meet those community needs. So next, our strategic initiative, the objective was enrich the lives of Middlesex County residents. So through that, we will expand our technology and innovation strategies to more library locations. We will offer greater access to digital collections, virtual resources, and programs. We will further develop our services and programs to be inclusive, accessible, and welcoming to all members of our communities. And so within this objective, we have our Wi-Fi hotspot lending project. So this is an example of how we expanded our technology strategy to try to bring library or internet access to more residents of the county. And so that's a project that will be coming back in, I'm trying to think whether it's March or May to do kind of that, an update on that program to see how implementation went in 2021 and how it's developing in 2022. So we'll be coming back to that project. We launched our Access 360 digital collection. So that's our kind of like our ebook and e-audiobook quick pick collection. So those are popular titles that you can kind of stumble upon on this platform that you might be waiting on a hold list on another one of our digital collection platforms. So that was an exciting way, an easy way to offer greater access to our digital collections, which have seen so much more use throughout the pandemic. Winter and summer learning virtual programs. So the pandemic, pushed us, motivated us to attempt a virtual version of our typically in-person winter and summer programs, and really expanded access across the county and allowed new and different participants to register for these programs and experience them and gain the benefits from them. So we were motivated to accomplish this greater access to programs, but we feel like that's going to continue. So into 2022, we will be setting a path to returning to regular in-person programs, but virtual programs will still be part of our regular year of programming. We've seen the success of them. We know that there are benefits to virtual programming. And so we're working on our approach in the coming years, incorporating both virtual and in-person experiences. On staff development, so over the past month and a half, staff have been completing the 4 seasons of reconciliation certification. And so this ties into that strategic initiative of, developing programs and services to be inclusive and welcoming to all members of our communities. So in support of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's calls to action, library staff were enrolled in the 4 seasons of reconciliation course. This is a unique 3-hour online course that promotes a renewed relationship between Indigenous peoples and Canadians through transformative learning about truth and reconciliation. And so staff have had, like I said, about a month and a half to complete the course, and we'll be coming back together at the beginning of December for another staff development opportunity where we'll be able to reflect on that training and really kind of expand our learning. And then as well connected to that, we're in the process of establishing a partnership between Early On and Nishwasnagang, the childcare and the Indigenous Childcare and Family Center in London. So this is a new partnership that we're building. It's going to start. So what exists now? So Nishwasnagang is a new childcare center in London with a mandate to serve First Nations families and children both in London and Middlesex County. So we're working to make that connection with the center and bring their programming into the county so that county residents, so that transportation isn't a barrier and we can make that connection. So the first program that we have scheduled so far is happening on December 18th, so just in a few weeks. The fine details are still in the works, and Frances Moore, the manager of the Child Care Center, is working closely with Nadine on that. But Frances is hoping for a drum making session with an elder, along with some other culturally relevant aspects to that program. So we're really excited to be making this connection with Frances and her staff and enhancing the programming at our libraries through that partnership. And finally, we have turn outward and make connections. So we will enhance our capacity to be an active presence in our communities. We will pursue opportunities to embed library services in a variety of sectors, such as childcare, schools, recreation, social services, and healthcare. We will engage in conversation and collaboration with our communities in order to inform and align service delivery to emerging needs and shifting expectations. So within this category, our community navigator support program, so all of the work that Josh is doing really aligns with this objective. It's been a very busy year for Josh, but like I've said before, it was the timing was right. His services are needed now during the pandemic more than ever. And so you'll see in the agenda that he's written a little report. It's kind of a one-year snapshot of things that he's worked on over the past year, and also looking ahead to 2022, where he's going to be offering Rent Smart training to county residents. So that's a program that helps prepare people to be good tenants. And it's something that some landlords really look for in an application, to show that that someone's going to be a good tenant. So that's one of the programs that Josh is working on next year. But he's had a really impactful year. And as well has worked really hard to spread the word of the Community Navigator program through council presentations and connecting with every service provider possible in the county. So it's been a really successful year, and looking forward to 2022. Something specific to the pandemic was our vaccine information phone call initiative. So this was a partnership with the health unit, where we were calling residents who showed up as card holders in our database, age 65 and up. So we were encouraging, or we were, providing support to get more information on how to book a vaccination appointment, and kind of direct people if they had questions or concerns, direct them where they needed to go. So obviously it was a benefit for our community in terms of encouraging vaccination, but it was also a great opportunity for library staff to connect with residents who perhaps weren't using our curbside pickup service. Maybe they didn't know how the library was operating. So it really benefited us both, and was a great way for us to make connections and reestablish those connections with our community. The early literacy in the home project. So that came to you, I believe, at our last meeting or second last meeting. So this is a project that the library was involved with over the past number of years, but now it's kind of moving into the library portfolio officially. So it's our what was called the baby book bag project. So it was how we distributed literacy resources to newly born children and families. So what we're working on now and moving into 2022 is kind of rebranding the program and aligning it with some of our other library initiatives. So that has started in 2021 and will continue in 2022. And finally, I've just listed the River Heights Early On Child and Family Center. So again, this is in your agenda as well that we'll talk about later under information items. But it's another example of a strategic initiative. This project, I think we can go back to 2017, 2018 when it was first discussed, and now we're getting back to it. So it's a building project that has been approved in Dorchester. Very exciting to add on an Early On Child and Family Center and a licensed childcare center to the River Heights Public School there. So again, an example of a project that aligns with our strategic plan that we're looping back to in 2021, and further planning will happen next year. So that was just a bit of a recap, obviously, of our 2021 to 2023 strategic plan and a selection of the projects and initiatives that we've been working on. And the intent was to show the progress that we've made over the past year. So even in the middle of a pandemic, where it seemed we were challenged at every turn, we were really able to accomplish some exciting and impactful things for our community. So as we look to 2022, so many of these initiatives will continue. They'll evolve and new projects will begin. And the 2022 budget will be the framework that supports this work. So I'm going to stop sharing this document and just bear with me. I'm going to bring up a version of the document that I just sent out 45 minutes ago to you. So our draft budget that also gives us kind of a year-to-year snapshot from 2019 to 2022. So let me just find it. There we go. Okay. So what I've done with this document before you is a little different than previous years. So we're showing the proposed 2022 budget on the far right-hand side, and then showing 2019, 2020, and 2021 to give those numbers some context and show natural progressions from year to year. So we have to look back to 2019 and 2020 to establish some of those normal operational costs because 2021 was not a normal year. And we need to look back to 2020 to understand the progression of, in particular, the progression of the staffing budget. Because if we think back to 2020, we made a number of additions to the staffing budget at that point, which I will talk about in more detail a little bit later. And then 2021 happened. It was an anomaly. We budgeted at a reduced service level. So, what this is, the intent of this is to prepare you is that we all understand what looks like a big leap in staffing costs. So what I'll be doing is walking you through what a normal year-to-year progression would have looked like. And through that exercise, we'll see how what looks like a large increase is actually more incremental. So I hope I'm not confusing you too much at this point, but it'll be a bit of a I'll give some direction as we move from year to year. And because the proposed 2022 staffing budget also includes some staffing changes that I'm recommending, we'll have that more in-depth discussion of the staffing budget in closed session. And so Mr. Chair, like we said, I'll let you know when we get to that point. We'll walk through the other areas of the budget and then we'll circle back to staffing at the end. So now that that is clear as mud, I'll scroll down here a little bit and just let me know if anyone can't see areas on the page, if you need me to increase the size of the font or anything, because I know we're all working with different size screens. So if we start, we're looking at our 2022 budget column here on the far right. We'll start with our provincial operating grant. Stays the same year to year, $134,047. So that's simple to anticipate. We have our early on child and family center revenue staying the same at $350,000. Social services, so this is the funding that supports the community navigator position. So that comes through the community homelessness prevention initiative, as well as funds that are meant for rental costs of the office spaces in libraries that social services staff use. So this is $91,500. Previously, the past 2 years, it was budgeted at $106,500. There were some additional funds directed to support the renovation projects, related to social services space. So this is returning to a more normal budget level year for 2022. Donations and fundraising, I've put this at $6,000. So if we look back to the last normal year, 2020, it was at $10,000. I'm trying to be conservative here with this estimate. It's a difficult one to know, what sort of donations we'll receive year to year. But this is a number that, I think is a good estimate. Fines and lost books, I put that at $10,000. So again, if you go back to 2020, which was our last normal year, we had that at $15,000. We will be operating at full service hours by the middle of January. So we will be open for a regular year, basically, but we will still be rebuilding our traffic levels. And so I think it's reasonable to budget for a lower anticipated revenue under fines and lost books. Also recognizing that we do only charge fines for adult materials. So the decision was made back in 2019, I believe, 2018, 2019, to not charge fees on children's materials. So that's reflected in these budget changes as well. So $10,000 for fines and books, estimating $8,000 for other revenue. So this is primarily photocopying and printing revenue. So again, our last normal year of 2020 had $12,000 in the budget for that. I'm estimating $8,000, recognizing that our traffic levels aren't up to full capacity yet. Then looking at our surplus, our anticipated surplus from 2021 is $300,000. So we've incorporated that full amount into this budget. And then you'll see the difference from 2021 to 2022 would be those additional modernization funds that were used in 2021 to support some capital projects. So those aren't in the 2022 budget. So with those revenues in mind, this leaves the county contribution at $4,623,032 for a total budget of $5,522,579. And we'll circle back to that county contribution, the increase, and where this is coming from, particularly with our staffing discussion. Any questions on the revenues at this point?
Can't see any hands.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we go down to expenditures. So beginning with salaries, again, I'm just going to do, just the overview of salaries at this point. We'll have the more detailed discussion at the end. So our salaries budget for 2022 is set at $2,814,862. with benefits at $614,076. So again, just, like I said, this looks like a large jump from 2021 to 2022, almost a $400,000 increase, this $394,972. But if you look back to a normal year of 2020, and again, that's what we'll be talking about in closed session, will be how is this actually a more natural incremental change? It's just the fact that 2021 was a reduced service level. It skews this increase. And so again, we'll talk more about that during closed session. And then as well, it's $53,642 increase to benefits. Under operations, so our kind of day-to-day operational costs, I've budgeted $257,700. So this is a $10,000 decrease from 2021, but still an increase from 2020, which was our last normal budget year. So we'll look at where those increases come from. So looking at office supplies, in 2021, we budgeted $65,000, recognizing that we had increased costs related to the pandemic. So more cleaning supplies, different materials were needed for programming and PPE related supplies. And so ongoing, we will still have additional cleaning requirements. And I don't anticipate that that's something like our current cleaning procedures. I think it's something that we're likely to continue on even past the next year, even past when other pandemic restrictions lift. It's kind of our new normal now. So this is a $10,000 increase from 2020, from our pre-pandemic normal budget, but that's where that increase comes from. Library admin, so this is supplies, furnishing, and other kind of maintenance projects that happen at our library admin building. So maintaining that budget at $12,000. Library internet, staying the same from 2021 to 2022. It is an increase from 2020 because we have increased our service basically at some branches. So where the IT department could make improvements to the Wi-Fi and the internet, that was pursued. And so that's part of that increase from 2020. Staff training staying the same at $22,000. I do anticipate that there will be some in-person opportunities in 2022, but still offering a lot of virtual training opportunities for people to attend. Our travel budget, I have that increasing by $10,000, so returning to normal pre-pandemic levels, because we will be operating at full hours. We will have more people filling in at branches and submitting mileage claims, and then also the potential for in-person training opportunities or conferences likely later in the year. And so that's where that budget increase comes from. Membership staying the same at $2,500. Postage, all the other budget items in here are remain the same from 2021 to 2022. So it really is those changes to the supply budget and the travel budget that result in the $257,700 overall budget for operations. Then we go down to collections. Again, maintaining the same overall budget from year to year. So same in 2020, 2021, and now 2022, but making those adjustments to categories to reflect what our collection needs are. So last year, we really increased our ebook budget because those platforms were being used so much by people who weren't visiting our branches. And we do anticipate maintaining that level. We've kind of analyzed what we've added to our collections in terms of print materials, and it makes sense to maintain this contribution at this point, recognizing that as we move through the year, if we need to make changes, we have that flexibility within the overall budget. So we have ebooks at 158,000. Our databases, so this is things like Ancestry Library Edition. We have a couple learning platform subscriptions, Gale courses and Udemy, as well as all of our other databases there for 60,000. So print materials at 150,000. Paperbacks we've decreased to 10,000 just based on the, what the collections look like in the branches right now and based on usage. Book processing, keeping it the same right now at 28,000. This is something that may change over the next year or so based on inflation. And, that's something that may impact the cost of books as well. But we feel comfortable maintaining this budget level for 2022. Periodicals, so our magazine and newspaper subscriptions. Looking back to 2020, we budgeted 28,000. We had a lot of magazine subscriptions. We did cancel those, the majority of them in 2021. And so now we're just looking at, in particular, what newspaper subscriptions we need to restart and what the demand is for magazines, basically. We're anticipating that we'll have much smaller magazine collections because a lot of people have moved to our digital magazines, but there may be a few titles that we need to keep based on demand. Reference materials, we've kept that budget at 5,000, same as last year. Just recognizing, our reference collections are in good shape. So not a lot of additions need to be made this year. We're decreasing. So this is physical audiobooks, so books on CD. Again, based on a lower demand for this media, we've decreased that budget to 5,000. And then we're keeping we're proposing that the DVD budget stay the same at 45,000. Again, if you look back at 2020, it was 65,000. So we have made an overall decrease. And that's, partly based on more people are accessing streaming for their DVDs. So there's a bit less demand for DVD checkouts, but as well, the number of movies, the number of DVDs that are coming out that are popular has decreased. So we're comfortable with this budget for the next year. So again, maintaining the same 471,000 for the overall budget. Next, we have branch development. Again, keeping the same 60,000 that we've had since 2020. So we break this budget into two parts. The first is purchase of services, which is really program related costs. So paying for a performer or other elements that go towards our program. So we have 15,000 allotted to that budget line and 45,000 to branch development, which covers any minor furniture purchasing that we do during the year, blinds, enhanced cleaning when we get things steam cleaned, those sorts of small branch development projects. So we're comfortable maintaining that budget overall at 60,000. Our rent budget. So again, this is one of our budget lines that naturally goes up every year based on the CPI. So this year, the calculation was using a 3.5% increase based on the average CPI over the last year. So that equals $714,990. So an increase of $14,700. Automation, this is our ongoing software renewals, computer supplies and maintenance. So all of the kind of minor computer purchases that we have to, or supply purchases that we have to make during the year, charges, fees for our printers, and any sort of licensing that we have to pay for every year. So we have kept this figure the same, exactly the same as 2021, based on projections that were provided by our IT department. Then we move to our capital budget, which is a significant difference from 2021. So what the 2022 budget shows is just a basic capital budget. So the bulk of this budget I think it's 121,000 is budgeted for regular computer replacements. So all of our public computers, staff computers, they're all on a replacement schedule. And so the majority of this capital budget goes towards those planned replacements for computers, iPads, printers, scanners, projectors, all of the technology that runs those public services in our branches. Beyond that, within this budget, there is $20,000 to maintain the Wi-Fi hotspot lending project and $10,000 to support the purchase of technology for branch programming. So in the past, we've purchased Oculus 3D glasses sets. We've purchased 3D printers. So it's those sorts of, so the $10,000 supports those kind of new programs and initiatives in our branches moving forward. So it's a significant difference from the 2021 capital budget, which included our RFID project, branch enhancement projects, our website redesign, and the novel branch library kiosk. But if you'll remember that those projects, this $709,000 was offset by the $335,000 surplus, as well as $355,000 in modernization funds. So it's really that $355,000 from modernization that went towards accomplishing those big capital projects for 2021. So a pared down capital budget for 2020. So that's where that number comes from. Library office maintenance, this is just the fee that we pay to Strathmere Lodge for, they use their resident van to pick up our mail from the post office and deliver it to the headquarters and back and forth. So that's a daily service that they provide. And then our Child and Family Center budget, which is $300,000, because $50,000 from the overall budget goes into our staffing budget to support the early on project manager's salary. So again, this brings us to a budget of $5,522,579. And in terms of expenditures, this is an increase of $104,601 over 2021. Any questions at this point about the operations, collections, anything of that nature before we loop back to my PowerPoint presentation, and then we'll go on to the closed session.
Is there any questions so far? I know there's going to be.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone's just holding them.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to bring my PowerPoint back up. Here we go. Okay, so that is the proposed draft budget. I did talk about 2021 versus 2022 capital budgets. Some of those 2021 projects will carry over into 2022. So the RFID project, we've done some of the background work, but we are scheduling this to ramp up in 2022. So even though we have a more pared down capital budget for 2022, there are still a lot of big projects that are in the works and other opportunities that are possible. So there's that RFID project. We will be launching our website likely within the next month or so, but that's a project that also continues into 2022, kind of refining and tweaking our web presence. And then we have a couple other opportunities. So our Middlesex community story walks. I think we've talked about this briefly at some of our other meetings. So this is a project that early on, so Nadine and especially Shauna, our child and youth librarian, have worked hard on over the past year to create temporary story walk structures in different communities around the county. But Nadine has submitted a number of funding applications over the past year to support a more permanent structure. So this is the potential for another, a big project that could be coming in 2022, depending if we are successful on any of these funding applications. I think the warden has a question.
Go ahead, Warden.
Thank you, Lindsay, and through the chair. Just wondering on these projects, and maybe I could have waited until you were finished going over the screen, but what are your thoughts for where the funds would come from that? How would you, so if there's opportunity to expand the RFID project, what's your plan for funding that?
So right now we haven't touched any of the RFID funding. So all of that is still, the budget for that overall project is still the existing 250,000. It's just that we haven't implemented the project yet. So no additional costs. It's just the fact that the work is still to be done over the next year.
Okay, good. Okay, thanks. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
And then finally on this screen is the potential for additional municipal modernization funding. So we did put in a library project with the last intake round that could support a system that provides enhanced access to some of our smallest branches. So it's a system that provides access outside of regularly staffed open hours. So this is something that, we're waiting to see if we are successful with this funding, and then we would come back with more detail. And then there's the potential for another round of funding to open up. And so this, I just want to bring to your attention the fact that even though right now the 2022 budget doesn't include large capital projects, there's still work to be done and opportunities that we can maximize. So let me see. And then just some considerations for 2023, already skipping ahead a year. Like I did mention, inflation, rising costs, supply chain issues that we're all hearing so much about, they are factored into, they are a consideration for this year's budget, but the impact of them may be felt in 2023. So it's just something for us to keep an eye on and be aware of. If books rise significantly in cost, if supplies as well, those sorts of things right now, because we won't start our in-person programming until likely early spring. We will have lower programming costs for that first quarter of the year. And so that will help accommodate any increase in prices to supplies and things like that for the rest of the year. But it's just something to be aware of for 2023. We have kind of a status quo operational budget for this year, but that may change, just something to be aware of for 2023. And obviously the ongoing impact of the pandemic, which we can't anticipate right now while we're still kind of in it. But it's just, that's part of our planning process as well. So that is the end of the overall budget discussion. Any questions on that before we move into the closed session and the staffing discussion?
I don't see any hands up, Lindsay. So then I'm going to ask for a motion that the next portion of this meeting be closed to the public at it's 11:15 a.m. in order to consider personal matters about an identifiable individual and labor relations of employee negotiations related to the 2022 staffing budget pursuant to subsection 239 brackets 2 and brackets B and in brackets D respectfully of the Municipal Act 2001. Look for a motion. Moved by Brian Richards. I need a seconder. Mary Gay. All in favor?